Welcome to another episode of B2B Marketing Futures. Today we are tackling one of the biggest debates in B2B, demand creation versus demand capture. How should marketing team invest? What really drives pipeline? And how will AI and changing search behaviors reshape both sides of the funnel? To explore this, I'm joined by Amit, Annie, and Jackie, three marketing leaders with very different perspectives. But before we jump into the conversation, I'd love for each of you to introduce yourselves. Just short introductions about your role. Jackie, would you like to give a sentence on yourself?
Sure. So my name is Jackie. I live in Austin, Texas, and I lead all global digital programs and North America regional marketing at DBT Labs. I lead a team of 12 people split between those two functions, and I've been there for about 4 years now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Amit, welcome.
Hey guys, so my name is Amit Gupta. I have been in marketing for last 12 years. I basically currently in Santa Clara, California. I've been with Fortanix for almost like from the start, I would say. Okay, I've been the founding marketing person over here. I lead a team of almost 15 people in terms of designers, demand generation people, field marketers, and also marketing operations and sales operations from my side. Very happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amit. Welcome. Annie, welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for having me. Yeah, my name is Annie Quigley Roberts. I'm a demand generation campaign manager with over 6 years of experience in the SaaS technology space. My current role at ServiceNow really focuses on driving customer engagement and accelerating sales growth by creating compelling content, orchestrating integrated digital marketing campaigns, and mainly managing strategic global events. And so really excited for today's topic, as I'm personally passionate about leveraging data-driven insights to optimize campaign strategies, but also enhance brand awareness.
Well, thank you so much for those great introductions. Let's start with the fundamentals. How do you define the balance between demand creation and demand capture in your organization? It's an open question, so feel free to share.
Okay, so I can start. See, there's different phenomena which has happened from the balance creation, from the demand creation to demand generation right now. Because what I have understood for being in the marketing is it has shifted basically. So the demand creation is a place where aligning the long-term growth of a particular companies, and demand generation basically is that which comes in the later side of the picture, as far I understand. Because when you start a company, okay, you need to create that brand awareness to the people to get what you do, what the product does, and what it basically does. But later in the picture, if you have defined your ICP, defined your persona, defined your product market fit, you understand what is and where it's going to fit. That is where the demand creation actually came in. Okay. So when we say demand capture, one of the major thing is that you can capture the demand if you have identified your true market fit in the market. And then you can look for people who are already looking for that particular type of product. But for the demand creation, you need to make aware of the people that you as a company who is building that product altogether in the market right now. Okay. And that is a bigger deal than creating demand capture. Okay. If I say, because when you're creating it altogether from the scratch, it's a lot of hard work, lots of content, lot of thinking, a lot of strategies involved, and a lot of other channel attributions is involved. Like are we getting that major, I would say the demand, okay, which is coming from that. Like if you create a particular content, like a blog, how many people are reading it actually defines how much eyeball you have got on in terms of the creation side. But the capture is that if you have got that person into your CRM, okay, now you're trying to convert them into a funnel, okay, or a pipeline. That where the demand capture comes in. So the demand capture takes lesser time to convert, but the demand creation takes longer time, but it gives you the long time effort, I would say, on the balance side. So both are basically equally important, but the demand creation needs longer time and longer place to be there, okay, to create that demand capture basically in the future. That's what my friend said.
Yeah, and I can jump in, kind of piggybacking off of Amit's great points. I don't really view demand creation and demand capture as separate stages in a funnel, but rather deeply interconnected parts of a unified marketing strategy that can work together across the entire buyer's journey. And particularly in today's marketing landscape, buyers don't move through the funnel in a straight line. And so, for example, at ServiceNow, Within my campaign work, I've really worked to take a holistic approach by trying to seamlessly integrate both demand creation and demand capture within my campaigns. And so I, throughout different stages of my marketing campaigns, have utilized both when it comes to performance marketing efforts that more are within the demand capture side, and also working to generate interest and registrations for in-person global events that align more with demand capture, in the sense of these events that we at ServiceNow hold around the world are intended to create a welcoming, community-oriented environment. And so those who have an interest or may not even know they have a pain point can join these events for free. It's low stakes. And so we kind of interweave them all together. And furthermore, within demand capture, we also actively enable our sales teams. And so sales teams and our teams engage in personalized outreach to key accounts and nurture leads after these in-person global events. And so I think sales enablement is kind of a great example of how one tactic itself can integrate both demand creation and demand capture, because while sales enablement traditionally supports demand capture, our marketing team ensures sales is also equipped with tools to support early stage demand creation. And so in my experience, that's involved from account-based marketing and through complex B2B sales cycles. So I have tried to not treat demand generation and demand capture as separate silos, but rather as complementary parts of a unified strategy. And like Amit was saying, the demand creation sometimes requires longer term growth, but is just as integral to the demand capture, where there is traditionally more attribution that we can derive.
And having events as a cornerstone part of your demand strategy, right? So if you could define before and after an event as demand creation and demand capture, maybe that's how you separate things. Like you invite people, that's how you create demand, like people attending to events and then trying to capture people who attended, or maybe people who didn't attend an event and you try to capture them anyway.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, it's in terms of that sequence, demand creation in the sense of this is a free event you can join in a city near you, since we do hold these events in different cities around the world. And then, of course, we do closely track those who register but maybe don't attend, as well as those who attend, and work to convert those into leads that can then be passed along to our sales team for nurturing.
Just to add, and just letting that what Annie is saying is that what we have actually seen from our side is that from coming from that COVID era, okay, which is like 2-3 years back, when we are all basically doing all these stupid webinars, and all these virtual events, etc., and all that. Okay, that time the conversion rate from the events to registration to attendee and to a pipeline was actually not too much. Okay, but after we move from these virtual and these other webinar events to physical ones, meeting them, people talking to our specialist or talking to the people who they want to interact with, okay, understand the questions more predominantly. And when we are doing these events on the smaller scale, people get to understand and get a chance to talk to the specialist more. Okay, so they get that. So what it helps is basically getting that more knowledge at a particular period of time when you're doing these smaller events, actually help them to take a decision more faster in the mind as a behavior understanding. Because in the webinars it take longer time, people been there, they understand that knowledge which has been given on the webinar. But on the physical events, as soon as they heard the knowledge, they actually get some questions in the mind and they start asking those questions to the presenter or to the host basically, and they actually increase the attribution level, okay, I would say, okay, into the next stages in the pipeline. So this has been changed. So the demand creation on terms of like getting the people into the events, okay, it's always been a problem. And I think, Sani, you must be knowing this already. Okay. But as soon as they are there, okay, the 30% job is done. Okay. At that time, if they are attending it, the scoring pattern of which generally works on the automation side basically gives them the more score, and then they move to the sales funnel more. So I would say the demand creation on getting people into the registration, but the demand capture actually takes the people when they attend. Okay, altogether. Maybe I just marry the both on the event side.
So I can jump in here. I think demand creation, right, is they're not even that aware about your company yet, right? So you're going out and finding where these people are first. And I think companies do this well in the beginning. So DBT Labs did this really well when I joined 4 years ago. We had no go-to-market activities or campaigns, but the demand was already there to capture because word of mouth and marketing, right? So they built the community. We were finding where these developers and practitioners were inside of Reddit and different forums and things like that. They had a podcast that was already tied towards analytics engineering, not valued towards our company. So when I joined, they did a lot of the creation towards pain points of those people and education. So when we were ready to go to market with plans, we could capture those people, right? But I think as you move towards a company, right, and your pipeline goals become more aggressive and your revenue goals become more aggressive, a lot of focus is put on demand today and capture today, right? And it's really hard to go to a CRO or a finance person and fight the case about, hey, we actually need to invest in brand awareness to get these people buyer ready. But this could take 6 months to 2 years, right? A lot of people have a hard time imagining that world. So it's how do you go to bat for that conversation, right? And I think, yes, the buying journey is not linear, right? But I do think it's split in that aspect. You still have to do the basics and you have to do the job of creating that demand today and capturing that demand today, but also showing that brand awareness has a huge influence on all of this and that we are not involved in those conversations when people are deciding who to buy between in terms of vendors, right? There's always going to be a top 3 list that they decide between, and marketing, sales, the company is not involved in that. So you have to make sure that your company is top of mind, right? So when they are ready to buy, you're there, but that's done through creating all of this demand and educating them throughout the process.
Yeah, you raised such an important thing, Jackie, with the challenges of making a case for long-term brand investment versus short-term pipeline. I would love to hear Annie and Amit. What are the challenges that you have faced when making the case for long-term brand investment?
Yeah, I mean, it's can be challenging in the sense that attribution is so much more clearer typically when you are talking about short-term pipeline efforts like paid search, paid media, outbound email. So it can be easier to defend in conversations with leaders. And then on the reverse, brand investment, our demand creation, that is often a slower yet fundamental part of the piece of pie, if you will. And so what has helped me across my career, at least, is reframing the conversation. So instead of talking about brand and then the short-term pipeline efforts as either or, I've worked to really position brand as a force multiplier for performance. So a strong brand can ultimately lower your cost per lead. It can increase conversion rates. It can improve sales velocity. And these are things too that would matter to someone in a leadership role when it comes to the bottom line. I think furthermore, also working closely with my sales reps in terms of what they're hearing out in the field from customers or prospective customers. That sort of qualitative signals can also be brought into the conversation as much as the quantitative signals. And so I think at the end of the day, I really believe that you can't capture demand that doesn't exist. So brand is really what helps create that demand in the first place. And so there is certainly a challenge in terms of balancing the long-term vision while still being accountable to short-term goals. But across my career, that's where the best marketing has often happened.
Let me tell you the major problem and challenges which we actually faced in the start. And that's what, Jackie, as you understand, like when you started, there was nothing as a marketing. The same challenges was with me. Okay, being as a founding marketing person, they're using Excel sheets when I joined the sales guys. So in that case, you even don't know what they're selling. Okay, you need to actually submerge all the data and etc. But what has worked very well for Photonics, I would say, from our side is that in the start only, I've actually started focusing on organic content and social media and building the community from our side, which actually created more of demand creations from our side. Like if you create a community of content, which your product is basically much of focus, when I'm talking about is altogether search engine optimization, guys. That if you have focused on your keywords in the very start of the period, you have very cleared your positioning altogether in the market, and you have actually focused on those keywords, your organic place actually going to create hell lot of demand, that demand capture in the later type of the picture. And I don't know about Annie and Jackie, but for us, what I've seen is that the other attribution channels or the other channels which helps to convert from a lead creation to a pipeline takes longer time when it goes to paid events, etc. and all that. but it takes very lesser time for the organic ones, or even now the AI search engines. Basically, the time which generally takes for the paid for event to convert is more than 6 to 7 months sometimes. But for organic, because what we are doing is a push and pull marketing over here. Okay, we are actually pulling the people through the SEO. Okay, so now the people already there to the website, they already know what they're looking for. They will go and in depth to get their own knowledge. Okay, rather than we actually nurturing them again. Okay, so they can take an action. Okay, and converting that, go for a contact us or a demo, or reach out to the people whom I want to need more actions. On the paid side, you give a particular asset to them, then they download it, they take time to read about it, then we nurture them. It takes around like 6 to 7 months to nurture them. The same thing happens with events. So what my understanding is, a challenge and the solution to that is that in the early stage, if you're actually focusing on more on search engine, I would say getting your keywords index, getting your community built all together, it will actually pay you in the longer run. Okay, and it will continuously pay you in the longer run. With and that place, when you are actually in a very good place of growing with the organic search, then you can actually create paid events and other thing on top of it. So that's what every company does, as I understand, but that's actually helped to grow. Okay, like a hockey stick for every company.
Yeah, and a quick question regarding a lot of the great points that you just raised, Amit. And from your experience, you're sort of noting that when it comes to organic social, well, in a lot of cases, sometimes that foundational growth can take time. You do raise a good point in the sense of we can, in different organic social channels, see results. But like we've been discussing, sometimes those results aren't as clear as traditional marketing KPIs. And so, in your experience, what have you found in terms of results that's really helped sustain that organic social journey so that, of course, ultimately you can incorporate the more demand capture side of things?
Basically, what I'm talking about is two things. So organic social, if you see when we started our journey in organic social, basically more like LinkedIn and Twitter, our major challenge was that Twitter was basically a very difficult place to actually entertain, get the people start putting comments, etc. and all. But for LinkedIn, if we create different type of contents, actually help us in indexing the again the keywords of LinkedIn. The people actually search for their terms and the insights as well, right? The people interest basically creates with content. So if you create a lot of content in the start in your feed itself, it helps you in organic social growth as well, because your feed started showing up to different people interests by itself. On the other hand, I'm talking in another sense is the search engine optimization, not on the organic social, but search engine optimization. It still works for us. And because of a lot of content we created in the early stage of the career, it actually helped on the AU as well. Like AI search optimization is also basically done with a lot of content we created. It's like, think like a Wikipedia right now. Okay, you ask certain questions right today, even on AI search engines, Wikipedia is basically one of the toppest ones. Why? It because it talks about what, who, or why. Because as soon as you have more questions on it, these AI search engines is going to take your answers, guys, start putting links over there. So now take an example, I will give you understanding. Our major pipeline creation for the whole year generally comes from the website itself, which is organic and organic social. And our next major source of this, I will say, is publicity and ChatGPT now, because we are getting hell lot of people coming from there.
Yeah, AI is certainly evolving the way we go about different areas. And I think that, at least in my experience, has been most evident when it comes to paid search. And so I think the way that people are querying has evolved. When you think about Alexa or Google Assistant, these are different platforms that I think have made that whole querying or search behavior more interactive. And so when we have approached paid search more recently, we've been really trying to incorporate more of a chatbot feature where people can ask questions, get answers in real time, and evolve to in the sense of where AI is going. So it's interesting to see how that will continue to impact our different tactics.
So Annie, I have a question on that. Tell me this. If suppose a company is basically deploying a chatbot feature on their website, majorly that is a place where people are going to interact with. Why should a people should go to the website and go in a chat, okay, over there, rather than going on Perplexity, Comet, Gemini, or to ChatGPT, because they that is a place which they are actually using every day. Okay, ample number of periods when we stupidly ask any question to our juniors, say, can you give me this understanding? What they do is they put their brain. If they don't get an answer, they actually go into that chat GPT and get that answer altogether. Okay, so I'm just asking I'm just asking that how that chat deploying on the website now. And I know the Drift created the whole chat engagement, a category altogether when Drift came in. I know that some other companies was there, but Drift actually created that category on the chatbot on the website. Okay. But how will you see that? Will that going to work, or we still evolving to see what can come out from the chat if we deploy it now?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because you're right. If someone is pretty comfortable using ChatGPT, for instance, then what's going to encourage them to engage with our chatbot in the same sort of interactive way? And at least from a messaging standpoint, where I have seen success is if your content is optimized in the sense of making it product focused with very clear and strong call to actions, like booking a demo, getting pricing, seeing the platform in action. That really does tend to align more with demand capture in terms of capturing existing demand. But I think making the call to actions as clear and concrete as possible has helped us when we've compared it to more CTAs that are, I guess, a little bit more vague in the sense of explore more, that sort of messaging. That certainly has helped. And you mentioned Drift. I think Drift has been a pretty key component overall across my marketing career. It's helped us to better understand just how we can connect with prospects, to answer questions and to guide them through the buying process, because it does provide those sorts of insights that are needed from an analytics standpoint, so we can track engagement metrics to really optimize our messaging strategies. But it's an evolving challenge, but also an evolving opportunity, because I think while people might be accustomed to using Copilot, Gemini, ChatGPT, all those lovely platforms, they start to see that they can directly interact with a brand in terms of their offerings, whether it's a product or a service. There is more opportunity there to get accurate and direct answers to whatever questions they have. Because as AI is still evolving, sometimes the answers that might come through aren't entirely accurate.
I'm just thinking out loud right now, but think about this, that ChatGPT is talking to your website chat, okay, one day. And actually, when you are asking questions from ChatGPT, it's actually getting answers from the another AI agent which you have actually deployed on your website. Okay. In that case, major problem which we are going to face in coming days is tracking. Okay, because we'll never know, okay, where is it actually people came from and what's working in terms of the channel. If we do that, just thinking out loud.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the attribution there is certainly more of a challenge, definitely something that I know we're all working through.
Yeah, and coming back to the main topic, which is like driving that brand, driving that awareness to drive people, for example, to your traffic, to your website, and to interact with your chatbot, or just asking something that is specific that connects with as you, Ahmed, mentioned, with your chatbot through ChatGPT, with that crazy idea maybe, but why not? You need to build that. You need to build that demand at some point, right? You need to build your brand. Jackie, I'm very curious to know your thoughts. You have great experience with community engagement, right? And I wonder how engaging with communities is helpful in building this trust, in building your brand, and in the future, not in the future, just based on that community engagement, also build answers for all the chatbots and the LLMs that are scraping the internet.
Yeah. So back to what y'all were talking about, I think, right, when if someone's going to go to your website, it's more than likely you're solving something that they're looking for, right? Or else they're probably not going. So I think when they're landing on your website, most importantly, why the chatbot is there, we have one as well that's more recent, is a frictionless experience, right? So we want to make sure that it's a 24/7 catering salesperson, but also customer success person for you to get you exactly what you need. So that's essentially why we have a chatbot. We also just launched an AI. Their name is Alex Riley. So I'm getting it confused. SDR, right? So when someone goes to book time with a rep, if they are already in that stage, if there's not a time that's available for them, they can meet with an AI SDR, and their name is Alex Riley. So we're launching that to get people what they need when they want it, because that's important. And back to the earlier point around how do you talk to your CRO, to your, your finance people around brand, etc. It really just goes back to buy a software tool, right? Go through the experience yourself and go through our experience as well. I've been through this phase a lot, just being in marketing. We've adopted a ton of tools. And I've dropped so many vendors because the experience just was not compatible with me. And it had a lot of friction in the experience. So I think AI is amazing in that sense, right? It can really give people what they want when. And I think the power in AI that's different than searching something in Google is it gives you an action, right? Not an answer. So I think that's what we have to optimize for when creating and capturing demand. But moving back to community, yeah, DBT Labs has a great Slack community, right? Also a big community on top of that, but we have 100,000 people in our Slack community alone. And again, this is something that we did really well when we first started because we weren't doing a lot of the other things, right? So we really nurtured and catered to this community group. So that was through Slack, that was through meetups, that was through podcasts, all of those different types of efforts. And along the way, right, just to be completely transparent, we lost a little bit of that getting completely looped into the other demand efforts, right, that are more traditional that a company is looking for as they're growing. So I think that's why it's important that you have to have both. So today, we do have a community dedicated group of people focusing on those efforts. And then we have a demand generation group of people focusing on those efforts. And I think it's really about the alignment, right, of the company and just education around how people buy today and where they're at in their journey, kind of tying those two groups together, right? So the community team has been through, I would say, hell back and forth. They were measured on pipeline. They weren't measured on pipeline. They were measured on activity in the Slack community. We were getting leads from meetups and then we weren't, right? And I think we finally landed in a place today that is a good one. They're not even on the marketing team, right? They were, they weren't, etc. And they are really just focusing on engagement, right? And really interacting with those people in terms of what they need. And a lot of our community is core users, right? And what we've learned is, yes, you have to make sure that you are giving them what they want, but more than likely, people that we want to go after more so today for our enterprise deals are green people, right? We don't actually want to go after the core users. They probably will never be ready, but when they are, we're making sure that we're there for them. But I think it's just about like having a really good balance, which is super tricky, honestly, at a company. And what I really like to tell people is our end users have no idea that any of these conversations are going on. So you just have to see it from their point of view at any stage. You don't know about us, you're slightly aware, you're fully aware, you're a customer, right? Is the adoption journey there? Is everything met for each stage of the journey to make sure that DBT is top of mind?
Hey, Jackie, I have one small question. What do you think about Reddit community in that case?
So that's another area that we've had a lot of wins and losses with. So we used to be heavily involved in Reddit communities and we were trying to cater to the audience a lot, replying to the audience a lot, giving them what they need in terms of resources. But we just kind of decided people have to engage with each other, right? And that's essentially what we're doing with the Slack community too. Let people learn, let people have opinions, thoughts that are good or bad about your product or your company, but let them come to those decisions by themselves without you interacting. So we're still involved in terms of tracking those forums, but we try to essentially not give much, right? And really let them come to the answer themselves.
No, so why I'm talking about on the Reddit side is because now, since Reddit has become a very huge content grabber for the AI search engines like today, because everybody asks a question and there's answers for different things, and they actually scrape it, understand it, and just start giving questions and answers through Reddit itself. So should we not think about that in the coming future? There's a possibility that the Reddit will become a very good place to get content. So basically what I'm trying to connect over is that Reddit to the AI search engines to the website. Okay. So if we don't invest our time and money right now on these communities where the content, because I'm not saying that we will not have Google search engines in coming days. Okay. We'll still have it, but it'll also be evolving through Google AI overview and different other things, because the demand creation is going to also get changed a little bit, okay, towards, so we still have physical branding, etc., but the virtual branding and other things which depends on the content from the different things which we are doing and is getting indexed on different places, because that is a place where you're going to get the, where we are going to capture the demand, no?
Yeah, I definitely think Reddit is a demand capture tool, especially with, we use Clay now.
Yeah.
We use Clay, we use 6 Sense for ABM efforts and even paid as well. So I think you can use Reddit in that sense to scrape information, but I think you have to take it with a grain of salt. It's kind of a black, I call it like it's the dark social. Yeah.
If, by the way, Sixth Sense is listening us by any chance, they should actually start grabbing data from Reddit, okay, because it's going to help us, okay,
Yeah.
to actually
Yeah.
get more targeting done, because Sixth Sense right now doesn't do that. Okay, Sixth Sense
Yeah.
is still not scraping the data from the communities yet, so it becomes difficult for us to manage that. By the way,
I
just
think it's a good place to get information, right? Especially when you're trying to build content. But I think then it's matched with like talking to your customers, right? Who are active and actually talking to you and are not in Reddit forums, right? But it's kind of taking those two and I think merging them and then just seeing what works.
I actually spend a like 3-member team just to scrap one thread of almost 400 threads, okay,
Oh,
on
wow.
one question, just to understand the behavior understanding of those people, what they're discussing about our product called as key management or HSM, which we are selling from our side, okay. But the outcome was amazing, okay, and I have to actually get that analysis and send it to our Gartner's analysts to understand what they are actually asking, what they are asking, not to the Gartner analyst, by the way. On that particular thread, they are talking about hell shit of questions about the product which we are selling. So anyway, that's the thing which I'm saying, that Reddit is going to be a bigger factor in coming days, which we ignored. I guess I did for my time. Okay. But now it's becoming a bigger place since the search engine is evolving.
What are your guys' thoughts then in that regard on owned media and content? Because, yes, to your point, Reddit can be a great way to connect that bridge to any content that your company might be developing. I know, Jackie, you mentioned podcasts. This could be blogs, reels, different sorts of multimedia content that I think certainly helps when a company is growing. For example, at my former company, this company wasn't newer, but it had just gone through a merger. And so what that meant, a new company name, and the older company name was way well more known in the market from a brand standpoint. And so we certainly had the challenge of building brand awareness with this newer company name. And we did find success when it came to honing in on our own media and content, but rather to get people to read this, we were widely using LinkedIn in terms of social content and paid media ads that we were investing in putting up on LinkedIn. We did see results from that in terms of raising our market awareness. So, what are your guys' thoughts around different kinds of owned media and content that can be leveraged?
Let me ask this question. So basically, when we say own content, do we take FAQs as a own content, which is basically then the website? The FAQs, which we generally put it on the backside of our website to actually create more of like awareness, actually. What do you feel? The FAQs are basically your own media? It's just a content which you created from your end? I'm just asking to give an answer.
I certainly think you could look at it in that regard. It's not, at least in my experience, where we've really bucketed in our own media. Like I mentioned, we've looked at podcasts and blogs and that sort of thing. But I do think, yeah, when we are thinking about the nuances of different channels and different tactics, an FAQ is integral to helping people get educated on your services and your products. The key, of course, is getting people to read that in the first place. But yeah, I would say that can play a hand in it.
Because what happens is, in my experience, I would say, in the starting of my career, we just started writing blogs, website content, solution pages, use cases, microsites, etc., and all that. That's like own in terms of own media. The change which is basically happened when we did this FAQ thing from our end, that our whole website visit from being at 20,000 per month actually increased to 80,000. Okay, in like 6 months altogether. So in that case, our my understanding basically is that every content basically created by a team of people on a particular company, either it's in FAQ, it's in any place, even the PRs and ARs which we do from our side, is going to give an outcome. Okay, in coming days. Okay, it's not like you're creating it and that will give you the outcome, because every content you create, I would say, is basically giving an outcome. Okay, like in terms of the sales pipeline.
Different sorts of tactics that you and your own experiences have particularly found success with when it comes to a company that is growing, or at least in my case, a company with a new brand.
For sure. So I think, again, it goes back to meeting people where they are, even your own database. So we do a lot of segmentation in that sense, mapping out exactly where someone is, but we also do a lot of persona segmentation as well. And then the way that DBT does it is we map out 3 campaigns per quarter, and we're doing those with product marketing, right? So they're talking to customers, doing the competitive research, market research, and then we're coming back with the pipeline goal as the demand gen team and saying, okay, what are the 3 things that we want to put into market? And we always do that by persona. So above the line and below the line. And there's job titles in all of that. And then another layer on that is where are they at in their journey? And that's essentially where this all comes in. Then we layer on this conversion funnel, unaware, aware, slightly aware, etc. So everything is very specific and catered to exactly where they're at. So owned media works very well for us today. Our best channel is email and social media. So DBT Labs has a ton of LinkedIn followers, right? So that grew significantly. So we're big on organic, LinkedIn specifically. And then our email is our best performing channel for when we're trying to push tactics out into the market. Again, the challenge that we see is building our database from what we have today. So again, I think that goes back to the creating demand aspect that we're not that strong in, right? So kind of upping that area. And then how can you grow your database? The biggest way that we try to do that is through partner marketing events, right? And partner relationships. So really being close with our partners and having a quarterly plan with them where they're hosting things, right? That we can capture in and dive into their database a little bit. SEO is another big way that we're growing our database as well. And then our community too, because I think the percentage in terms of who's actually in our community and then who's in our database today is very, very low. So those are kind of the 3 ways that we're trying to grow it too.
So, Jackie, one question on that. What do you feel your whole database? So, do you guys segment in terms of engaged as well, or just a segmentation by the persona? And when you say we see the engage, what is the parameters we generally look for? Because I understand that this what we're discussing right now is majorly more on demand capture, I guess, right? Because the later side of the picture, right? That's right.
Yeah, I consider anything with owned is our people that we can market to, our marketable database. I consider that creating demand, but it could also be customers. So whatever category that falls in terms of expansion and renewals, that's like a big number that we contribute to as well, which I think is another layer on top of this.
Just wanted to understand from you that what you generally do from your side. The people who are not engaged on that particular segment.
The people who, or an account that's not fully engaged. You're saying like a contact is engaged, but not
a contact engagement basically. So I understand the account part. Okay, what I'm trying to understand is you must be having, so every contact is associated to a company, right? Okay, so if we are targeting suppose 100 companies in that particular segment, okay, there will be 200 contacts, 300 contacts basically coming, and out of the 300 contacts will have 100 who are engaged and the 200 which is not engaged. Okay, but we need to actually get outcome from that segment right now, right? So 100 ones are good to go with emails, etc., etc. The another 200 which are not going to open the emails, not going to click on the emails. So what should we do? Like what you are doing, I just wanted to understand from you, by the way.
Yeah. So I think a big goal, right, for us is getting wide inside of accounts, because the exact problem that you're mentioning right now is we only have a few contacts, and a lot of people could be using DBT Core and they don't even know because they're huge data teams, or they're not using it at all, right? So again, it's finding out where that account is in the journey. But like you're saying, how do you get inside that account wide? So for big accounts, majors, right, the way that we do this is through ABM efforts. So that's our exact goal of that ABM effort. Yes, obviously land and expand the account if it's an expand, but our main goal for ABM is getting super wide inside of that account. And we do that through all of the channels, obviously, but specific ABM efforts. A huge part of this, though, and the people that help us with this the most is our SDR team, actually. So when we find an account that is doing a marketing effort and it's only a few contacts engaging with us, they're really good at scraping who's not engaging with us from that account, and they are actually doing outreach to them. That's probably not the best thing to say because who wants to be sold to, but it actually works. So they're getting on the phones, they're setting up meetings with them, and they're talking about something that another team member did, right? To kind of make them aware and have those team members start talking. We also do a lot of team events. So we're focused on table exercises with the team, in-person team events, and virtual team events too. And we're always doing like refer this, send this to your team. So we're trying to involve them and then cater again by job titles. Hey, send this to your boss. Like we do a lot of champion kits because our goal essentially is enable the champion so they feel like that's what DBT does. Like go get yourself promoted by using DBT or like selling DBT inside of your company. So we're trying to get them to talk about DBT right through those efforts. And then we're also trying to reach those people. But it's exactly what you said. We do paid. We do a lot of incentivized demos. That's what works the best for us through paid, retargeting, ABM approaches. And then we have our wide net things like webinars, campaigns, etc. And then inside of those, the SDRs are helping us target those accounts where the contacts are not engaging with us.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any number as to when you do this, okay, in a particular quarter, how much non-engaged convert to an engaged? Like, just wanted to understand.
No. It's not something that we really track, to be honest, from a marketing, right? We do want an
Yeah.
ABM effort, like a
Yeah.
one to few, etc. But in terms of where was the account before the quarter and then where are they now in terms of engaged and non-engaged, we actually don't track that. But I will definitely start now that you asked me about it.
So the reason why I'm asking this because the lead scoring pattern basically works in the same way. So the lead scoring for unengaged can go to 0. And for the unengaged ones, it actually go to 50 and 60 after you start doing the things. Then you can actually see that, oh, how many people are actually converted from engaged to unengaged in that particular period of time frame. Because I do that to see actually that whatever the campaigns actually work. And because this lead scoring, and I don't know you guys, we use HubSpot from our end. So we have AI scoring pattern, which basically create for each of the people at combined score and an individual scoring. It helps me to understand. That is the biggest place. I can tell you guys right now, the demand capture over that if you look at that person who is sitting without talking to you or not reading your email is the person who's going to help us get the pipeline to conversion.
Right.
This is my experience because I've seen the people who are just sitting doing nothing, not replying to your emails, etc., is the person who is basically behind, actually looking at your platform, actually looking at your product in terms of the POC, okay, whether it works or not. So just some points.
But also, right, in terms of like executive leaders, we're actually not measuring if they're engaging with our activities because we know that they're probably not. And that doesn't mean that they're not interested though. And so if they are going to be the ones that are signing, it's how do you measure that? So we do a lot of nurture journeys and quick reads and things, case studies for these higher titles who are not going to be using actually DBT, but they'll be signing it at the end of the day. And exactly what you're saying is we're really not going to look at if they're registering for a webinar because they probably never will, right? So it's like, how can you measure those folks?
Let me ask this simple question to Annie, Jackie, and I think so, Joe, you as well. Okay, how many types of newsletters you guys have in your company right now?
Wow. I chuckle because they're in the vein of personalization and really trying to meet different audience segments. There's innumerable ones. Working at a larger company, that's at least been the case. And at least from my experience, I think, Jackie, you bring up a good point regarding the different job levels in terms of how we communicate with those different job levels. And so it's not necessarily newsletters when we are trying to garner the attentions of upper leaders. A lot of that, like you already stated as an example, Jackie, is case studies, thought leadership content that is more geared towards them. But when it comes to the global events that I touched upon earlier, a lot of who we are targeting for registrations and ultimately attendance is those at the individual contributor level. But we want them to be our champion. We want them to help drive ultimately the decision maker into investing. So different channels and different ways we are outreaching dependent on the job levels.
How many types of newsletter do you have in your company, right?
Types of users?
Newsletters.
Newsletters. Interesting. So we have about 5, but we're actually narrowing it down to 1. So we have a newsletter that's a product update. We do one for new users who hit our database every week, right? So they can do something hands-on. That's a 101 type of event activity. And then we do one to get people to qualify, right? So activities that will make them qualify. And a community one and a partner one. So actually 6. And it's too many. So we're actually rehauling all of them currently to have one centralized newsletter that will kind of cater to everyone.
I don't know if you guys use Marketo or if you use HubSpot. I don't know. We have one and we use the smart rules. Okay. And it does a job very, very correctly better. We just go and see how these smart rules, each segments work and basically work. My understanding, what I have seen is if I cater the newsletter very specific to those segments which you talk about sometime back, Jackie, because the nurture and the reach outs basically there. What we do different right now is that we make those newsletters into like a pages, like sub microsite pages. And we ask our AEs to send us newsletters to the top 4 people, actually. Send them the link. If you're talking to them, let them know what we are doing, etc. and all that. There's an email is the only place, but they're not going to read because we are sending it from newsletter at that blah, blah, blah.com. Okay, but if it's coming from a AE altogether, they must be opening it and reading it. That makes much difference. What I'm trying to tell you is that this actually helps on the demand capture to convert them as soon as, because that company newsletter, logo, lot of pictures, etc., make them aware about the company much. That's it. That's what I was trying.
Wow, that's great examples. Well, thank you so much. Today we unpacked definitions, the budget tensions, channel strategies, the role of AI in shaping the funnel. So huge thank to Amit, Annie, Jackie for sharing their perspectives. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to B2B Marketing Futures and share it with a colleague who's navigating the same challenges. Until next time, thank you so much.